Could you address why there isn't an Orthodox version of the Magisterium? Well, there is. Who told you there's not? This is an issue that you'll come across on YouTube, and which I find to be a stumbling block. With all respect, thank you. Okay, thank you, whoever you are. I don't see any names associated with the questions. The Magisterium, as I understand it, in the West, is a particular caste or group of decision-making, dogma issuing popes and their advisors and the clergy, the hierarchy, the cardinals, whatever it is. I'm not sure exactly the definition, how they would define it in Catholicism, but we have a magisterium, and that's the saints. It's the consensus of the saints. It's the saints of our day. We all need to be obedient to them. Bishops, patriarchs, theologians, priests, deacons, subdeacons, readers, lay people, all of us are required, if we want to be Orthodox Christians and to follow in our Lord's footsteps, the apostles' footsteps, to follow the saints, to listen to the saints and to revere them. We run to the saints. This is why many times you'll see this. This is such in many ways, a chasm with Catholicism and Protestantism, because they'll say, well, there's no teaching authority in Orthodoxy. And well, you go to one priest who says this, another priest says that. I said, well, there's an answer to that. And the authorities in the Orthodox Church are the saints, and the saints are one. Let's just take the question of ecumenism. Name me one saint that ever embraced ecumenism. I can name you dozens that have rejected it explicitly and said this is a terrible heresy. St. Eustace Popovich, of course, speaks for most of them when he says it's the pan heresy. Elder St. Paisius said it's there along with what did he say? There's three main temptations today. I think one is for the poor. How does it go? You guys know the quote. In any case, Freemasonry is one of the temptations that he mentions, this for the rich, I think maybe, and then there's ecumenism for the spiritual, the religious people, and then there's communism. Yeah, I think communism was for the poor man. So, but you can go on and on. I mean, no saint ever said ecumenism is a good thing, we ought to run to it. It's those who are falling away, those who are embracing perennialism or various versions of Second Vatican Council ecclesiologies that are falling into delusion and falling away from the Orthodox Church. They're not the saints. Even as they declare them saints, they don't follow them, which is really, reminds you of the Pharisees. You've declared these people saints, and yet you do not follow them. Clearly, you turn away from their very clear teaching. Saint Ephraim of Katonaikia said that ecumenism is filled with the spirit of a demonic spirit. Okay, can't get any clearer that this is demonic and go and turn away from it. And yet there are bishops and priests of the highest rank who continue to follow and go off into delusion and heresy. They don't follow the saints. Why? Well, I don't know. That's their problem. But that is very clearly the teaching of the saints. We have our magisterium. We have our teaching authority. It's the saints. But let me just tell you, that's true throughout church history. And it was true in the first millennium when those who, are in the papal Protestant confession or the Reformed Protestant confessions, and they want to call upon the saints in the early church in the first millennium in the West, that was the case. And I'll show you how that's the case. Because when you go back to the ecumenical councils, it was the presence of those deified, glorified, illumined saints who made the difference, who made the day, who clinched it, who became the voice of the church again and again. It was not just the teaching authority as if it's some kind of legalistic legal question. Okay, it's not. It's a question of experience of God. Those who have the experience of God are the authorities. As a priest, I fulfill a role, and I'm called to holiness. But whether I reach it or not, I don't automatically have the authority to speak for the church, or that'll be obtained when the church and God will recognize in each person that's struggling that this person's of God. It's revealed by God through a variety of signs. It's revealed to people's hearts and consciences in the church. And then they gravitate to those who speak the voice of God, the consensus of the fathers. It works. It's an inner life of the church. We don't go to the outside world and say, this is how we work. we have the best magisterium system ever devised. No, it's an internal thing. You got to live it. You've got to experience it. You've got to come into it to understand it. And that's how it should be. And if it wasn't like that, it wouldn't be true, right? They're so far away. The fact that you have all these external checks and balances is actually a sign that you don't have this reality that I'm talking about. The fact that people run to that as security. We have an infallible Pope and he's going to keep us on. I mean, are you joking me? The Pope Francis is so far from not even an infallible anybody. He's a heretical teacher of heresy, and many Roman Catholics are saying that. So where is this full proof we're going to be saved because we have an infallible man in Rome? It's delusional, okay? It's delusional. Wake up and realize that if you don't have a life, you don't have authority. If you don't have the way, you don't speak the truth, you don't live this and ascend the cross, you don't have authority. It doesn't matter if you have the highest position in the church. Many heretics were patriarchs of Constantinople. There were several heretics who were popes of Rome before the millennium. Of course, all of them since the falling away of the Pope. Every last pope for the last 1,000 years has been a gross heretic and far from the church fathers because he's rejected the church. I mean, you can't be a saint and reject the church and walk away from the church. And the church is the one holy Catholic Apostolic Church that he walked away from, and they followed. So you can go on and on, but the point here is that we have a magisterium, we have an authority in the church, and it's the deified ones, and that's the way it's always been. That's the way it's always been from the beginning. The apostles had the authority. Why? Because of Pentecost, because of God's witness in and through them. It wasn't a legal thing. That's what the Pharisees had. Anyway, very interesting question. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. And hopefully that's been helpful.